The wind carried ash across the broken valley. Ashera folded her wings and landed near the cave entrance where everything had ended 3 weeks ago. Her claws scraped against stone that still smelled like smoke and fear. She had circled this place for hours, unable to land, unable to face what she already knew. Now she walked forward on legs that felt too heavy. The cave was empty. Of course it was empty. She had known this since the day she returned from hunting to find the raiders gone and her world destroyed. But knowing and seeing were different things. The nesting alcove held only fragments now, pieces of shell scattered across the warm stones. 7 eggs had rested here, 7 young lives waiting to hatch. Ashera lowered her massive head and touched her snout to the largest fragment. It was blue-green, the color her scales had been when she was young. This one would have hatched first. She had felt it moving inside the shell just days before the attack. The raiders had come with weapons designed to hurt without killing. Energy nets that burned but did not scar. Sonic devices that paralyzed but left no marks. They wanted the eggs intact because intact meant valuable. Somewhere in the galaxy, wealthy collectors paid fortunes for dragon young. Exotic pets for people who had everything else. Ashera had tracked the raiders for 2 weeks before losing their trail near the border territories. They had split up, scattered across a dozen systems. The Galactic Council had sent her a message expressing sympathy. Empty words from politicians who had never lifted a finger to protect dragon nesting grounds. Her species was too dangerous, they said. Too unpredictable for civilized space. So they left dragons alone on restricted worlds and pretended to care when tragedy struck. She walked deeper into the cave, past the alcove to the chamber where she had slept between hunts. Her treasure pile sat untouched. Gold and crystals gathered over centuries meant nothing now. What good was wealth when you had no one to share it with? Dragons were meant to be solitary, yes, proud and independent. But mothers were different. Mothers were allowed to love their young, even if only in private. Ashera had been alone for 300 years before deciding to nest again. Her first clutch had been destroyed in the Purge Wars when she was barely old enough to fly. She had sworn never to risk that pain again. But time wore down even dragon resolve. She had wanted to hear young voices in these caves. Wanted to teach someone the old ways before they were forgotten completely. Now the silence pressed against her like deep water. She left the cave and climbed to the ridge above the valley. From here she could see the scorch marks where raider ships had landed. They had come at dawn when she was away hunting for the extra food her eggs would need once they hatched. The attack had lasted less than an hour. Professional, efficient. They had known exactly when she would be gone and how long they had. Someone had been watching her, planning this. The thought filled her with rage, so intense her body temperature spiked. Heat shimmered around her scales. She wanted to burn something, destroy something, make someone pay for what they had taken. But rage without direction was just waste. She had learned that during the wars. Anger had to be cold and sharp, not hot and wild. She spread her wings and launched herself into the air. The valley fell away beneath her. She would not return to this place. There was nothing here but memories and pain. The hunt would continue, but she needed information first. The raiders had vanished into the underground networks that operated in neutral space. Places where the Council had no authority and no interest in looking. Station Outpost 7 kept appearing in her research. A trading hub in the outer regions where smugglers sold things that should never be sold. If her young had been taken there, someone would know. Someone always knew. The trick was making them talk. Ashera angled her flight toward the edge of the atmosphere. Her ship waited in orbit, small enough to navigate tight spaces, but fast enough to outrun most patrol vessels. She had built it herself over decades, adding modifications that no official shipyard would approve. Dragons might prefer flying through open air, but space required different tools. She rose through the clouds. She looked back one final time. The valley was just a dark scar against green mountains now. In a few years, new growth would cover the scorch marks. The cave would fill with snow and ice during winter. Eventually, no trace would remain of what happened here. But Ashera would remember. Dragons never forgot. She keyed the airlock sequence as she approached the ship. The outer door cycled open, and she folded her wings tight to slip through the dragon-sized entrance. Inside, she shifted to her smaller form, a trick only the oldest dragons mastered. Her body compressed down to something closer to human size, though still obviously reptilian. This form let her operate controls designed for smaller hands. The ship responded to her presence, systems coming online with soft hums. Navigation showed her current position and the route to Station Outpost 7. 3 days of flight through the outer lanes. She could make it in 2 if she pushed the engines. Ashera settled into the pilot nest and engaged the drives. The planet fell away behind her, shrinking to a blue-green sphere, then a dot, then nothing. Ahead lay the dark between stars. Somewhere in that darkness, her young were either alive or dead. Either way, she would find them, and she would find the ones responsible. The ship accelerated, and Ashera began to plan. Liam Carter squeezed through the gap in the wall plating, his headlamp cutting a thin beam through the darkness. The lower levels of Station Outpost 7 smelled like rust and old air, the kind that had been recycled so many times it tasted metallic. Most people avoided this section since the main oxygen processors failed last year. The emergency systems kept things breathable barely, but it was not comfortable, which made it perfect for scavenging. That he dropped into what used to be a storage corridor and swept his light across the debris. Broken crates, twisted metal, scattered equipment. The station authorities had abandoned this level months ago after deciding repair costs exceeded value. Everything down here was technically salvage now. Technically legal to take if you could carry it out. Liam had been working these levels for 6 months, selling what he found to the recycling shops in the mid-station markets. It was not much of a living, but it beat the alternatives. Orphans without family credits had limited options on stations like this one. You worked, you stole, or you starved. He preferred working. His light caught something wedged behind a collapsed support beam. Metal, but not station metal. The surface was too smooth, the color wrong. Liam pulled out his prying tool and worked at the debris until he could reach the object. It was a container about the size of a storage locker, sealed with locks he did not recognize. Expensive locks. Military grade, maybe, or corporate, that he should report this. Station security paid bounties for recovered cargo, especially mysterious cargo. The credits would be good. Maybe enough to book passage to a better station, somewhere with actual jobs and schools. But something stopped him. The container was warm. Not hot, just warm, like it contained something that generated heat. And when he pressed his ear against the metal, he heard movement. Scratching sounds. Something alive struggling inside. Liam sat back on his heels and stared at the container. Reporting it meant credits, but it also meant questions. Where did you find this? When? Did you open it? Station security on Outpost 7 was not known for being gentle with people who found things they should not have. Especially not with orphan kids from the lower levels. More scratching came from inside. Weaker now. Whatever was in there was getting tired, that he made a decision that would change everything. The locks were complex, but not impossible. Liam had learned basic security bypass from watching dock workers, and these systems ran on standard power cells. He pulled the first cell, shorted the circuit, and the lock clicked open. The second took longer, but eventually gave way. The third was just a mechanical latch. The container hissed as pressure equalized. Liam pulled the lid up slowly, ready to slam it shut if something dangerous emerged. A small head poked out, covered in scales that shimmered blue-green in his headlamp. Large eyes blinked against the light, vertical pupils contracting. A forked tongue tasted the air. The creature was barely bigger than a cat, with wings folded against its sides and a tail that wrapped around itself like a dragon. A real dragon, young enough that its scales had not fully hardened yet. Liam had seen pictures, of course. Everyone knew about dragons, the ancient species that lived on restricted worlds and wanted nothing to do with the rest of the galaxy. But pictures did not capture how the scales caught light or how intelligent those eyes looked. This was not some dumb animal. This was a person, just not a human person. The dragon tried to climb out of the container and immediately stumbled. It was weak, starving probably. How long had it been trapped in there? Days? Weeks? Liam reached out slowly. The dragon flinched but did not pull away. He lifted it carefully, surprised by how light it felt. The creature should weigh more. He could feel its ribs through the scales. It opened its mouth and tried to breathe fire. Nothing came out except a few sparks and a puff of smoke. Too young and too weak. Liam knew what this was. 3 weeks ago, the station gossip channels had been full of news about a raid on Draxon 4, the Dragon World. Raiders had hit a nesting ground and stolen eggs, valuable eggs worth fortunes to collectors. The Galactic Council had issued statements condemning the attack. Then they had done nothing because they always did nothing when it came to dragons. This had to be one of those stolen young. Somehow it had hatched inside the container, trapped and alone. The raiders must have hidden it here, planning to retrieve it later. Or maybe they had abandoned it when the heat got too intense. Either way, Liam was holding stolen property worth more credits than he would see in 10 lifetimes. He looked into those large, desperate eyes and knew he could not turn it in. Could not let it go to some collector who wanted an exotic pet. This was a child, intelligent and aware and terrified. The dragon made a small chirping sound and pressed against his chest, seeking warmth. Liam tucked it inside his jacket and zipped up carefully. The creature weighed almost nothing, but he could feel its heart beating fast against his ribs. He had a hiding place in the abandoned crew quarters 2 levels up. Not much, just a room with a broken door lock that he had fixed so only he could open it. He kept his few possessions there and slept when the station lights dimmed for night's cycle. It would have to be enough. Liam climbed back through the gap in the wall, moving carefully now that he carried precious cargo. The dragon stayed quiet inside his jacket, maybe understanding they needed to stay hidden. When he reached his room, he set the creature down on his sleeping mat and looked at what he had gotten himself into. A stolen dragon, on a criminal station, with no idea how to care for it or keep it secret. But when the dragon looked up at him with trust in its eyes, Liam knew he had made the right choice, that he would figure out the rest later. 3 weeks changed everything. The tiny dragon Liam had named Nova was already twice the size she had been when he found her. Her scales had lost their dull, starved look and now gleamed with proper color. She still fit in his arms, but barely, and her appetite seemed endless. Feeding her had become the main challenge. Liam stole nutrient paste from cargo shipments passing through the docks. He diluted it with water, and Nova ate it without complaint, though she made faces that suggested it was not her preferred meal. He had no idea what dragons actually ate. The network had basic information, but nothing about feeding hatchlings. Nova followed him everywhere now, her claws clicking on metal floors as she walked. When he sat, she curled up next to him. When he slept, she draped herself across his chest like a warm, scaly blanket. She purred when content, a deep rumbling sound that vibrated through his ribs. She was also smart, frighteningly smart. Within a week, Nova had learned to recognize his words. Not all of them, but enough to respond when he called her name or told her to hide. She understood danger without him explaining it. When footsteps approached in the corridor, she would squeeze into tight spaces before he could point. Liam taught her to stay silent when others were near. He used hand signals and soft sounds, creating a private language between them. Nova picked it up faster than any animal should. Sometimes he caught her watching him with an expression that seemed almost calculating, like she was studying him the same way he studied her. The close calls made his heart race every time. Last week, station security had conducted a random inspection of the abandoned quarters. Liam had gotten 30 seconds warning from corridor sounds. Nova had hidden inside a broken ventilation shaft while the guards swept the room with scanners. They found nothing suspicious and moved on. Liam had sat frozen for 10 minutes after they left, his hands shaking. Nova had emerged from the shaft and pressed her head against his leg, offering comfort. That was when he knew she understood more than he had thought possible. Today, Liam sat on a sleeping mat while Nova practiced her fire breathing. She could manage small flames now, about the size of a lighter. She seemed proud of this accomplishment and demonstrated it frequently, usually at inappropriate times. "You need to stop doing that when we are near other people," Liam told her. "Fire attracts attention." Nova chirped and produced another tiny flame, clearly showing off. Liam laughed despite his worry. She had a personality, this little dragon, playful and stubborn and affectionate. She chased light reflections across the walls. She tried to mimic his movements, walking on her hind legs until she lost balance. When she was tired, she would crawl into his lap and fall asleep immediately, trusting him completely. The thought of losing her hurt more than he wanted to admit. He had been alone for 3 years since his parents died in a cargo accident. The station authorities had placed him in youth housing for 6 months before budget cuts shut the program down. After that, he was on his own, 14 years old and invisible to everyone except the recycling dealers who bought his salvage. Nova made him feel like he mattered again, like he had a purpose beyond just surviving. But the station was getting dangerous. Liam had heard the gossip in the markets. Whispers about a dragon spotted near the sector. Some said it was searching for something. Others claimed it was hunting raiders who had attacked a nesting ground. The stories varied, but the fear was consistent. Dragons were dangerous, unpredictable. If one came to the station, there would be trouble. Liam knew the dragon had to be Nova's mother. What else would bring an adult dragon to a place like this? She was searching for her stolen young. The thought filled him with conflicting emotions. Nova should be with her own kind, not trapped on a station with a human who barely knew how to care for her. But the idea of giving her up made his chest ache. Worse, he had heard other gossip. Criminals discussing a buyer who wanted the last survivor from the Draxon raid. They knew one of the stolen young was still on the station. They were searching, asking questions, offering rewards for information that it was only a matter of time before someone connected the dots. Liam made a decision. He needed to get Nova off the station somehow. Find a way to return her to the wild, to her real home. She deserved better than hiding in abandoned rooms and eating stolen nutrient paste. But first, he needed information. Where did dragons actually live? How could a human safely approach dragon territory? What if her mother thought he had been one of the raiders? Nova bumped her head against his hand, sensing his worry. Her scales were warm under his palm. I will figure this out, he promised her. I will keep you safe. She chirped softly and settled into his lap. The station lights dimmed as the night cycle began. Liam laid down on his mat with Nova curled against his side. Her breathing slowed as she fell asleep. Each exhale a tiny puff of warm air. Tomorrow he would try to access the network archives, see what information he could find about dragons. Maybe there was a way to contact them, send a message somehow. He had to try. The alternative was waiting for Nova's mother to arrive and tear the station apart looking for her, or waiting for the criminals to find them first. Neither option felt safe. Liam closed his eyes, but sleep did not come easily. He kept thinking about the trust Nova showed him, how she had chosen to curl up with a human stranger instead of biting or running, how she looked at him like he was her whole world. He could not let her down. Whatever it took, he would protect her, even if that meant giving her back to her real family. The alarm started just after dawn cycle. Liam jerked awake as warning sirens blared through the station corridors. Nova jumped to her feet, wings spread, ready to fight or flee. Emergency lights flashed red, casting strange shadows across the walls. Liam ran to the corridor and grabbed the nearest person hurrying past. What is happening? Dragon, the man gasped. Massive one just burned through the outer airlock. Station security is trying to contain it, but nothing is working. The man ran off before Liam could ask more questions. His stomach dropped. Nova's mother had arrived. He ducked back in his room where Nova was pacing nervously. She made sounds he had never heard before, high-pitched and urgent. Her head kept turning toward the outer walls like she could sense something beyond them. Your mother is here, Liam told her. She's looking for you. Nova chirped and moved toward the door. She wanted to go, to find the source of whatever she sensed. But Liam grabbed her gently and held on. Wait, we need to think about this. If we just walk out there, the criminals might grab you first. Or security might shoot both of us thinking I am one of the raiders. Nova struggled for a moment, then settled in his arms. But she kept making those urgent sounds. Liam's mind raced. The smart thing would be to stay hidden and wait for things to calm down. But what if Nova's mother destroyed half the station looking for her? What if people got hurt because he was too scared to act? He had spent 3 weeks keeping Nova's secret. Maybe it was time to do the opposite. The station shook. Something large had hit the outer hull. Liam heard screams from the upper levels and a shriek of metal tearing. The dragon was not being subtle about her search. Liam made his choice. He tucked Nova inside his jacket and headed for the central corridors. If he could reach the main concourse, he could get Nova somewhere visible, somewhere her mother would sense her. The corridors were chaos. People ran in all directions, some heading for escape pods, others trying to reach the inner secure sections. Station security rushed past in full armor, weapons charged. Nobody paid attention to one teenage boy in the crowd, that he was halfway to the concourse when 3 men stepped out of the side passage and blocked his path. Liam recognized one of them from the markets. A dealer who moved illegal goods through the lower levels. The kind of person you avoided making eye contact with. That is him, the dealer said to his companions. The kid from the abandoned quarters. I heard he has been buying extra food for weeks. The other 2 men moved to flank Liam. One held a stun weapon. The other had a scanner device. Heard you found something valuable, boy, the dealer continued. Something that certain buyers would pay very well for. Especially now that the mother dragon is tearing up our station. Liam backed up but hit a wall. Nova squirmed inside his jacket. I do not know what you're talking about, Liam tried. The man with the scanner activated it. The device beeped and displayed a heat signature inside Liam's jacket. A heat signature that was definitely not human. Hand it over, the dealer said. We will make this quick. You can even keep a finder's fee. No, Liam said, the dealer sighed. We could do this the easy way or the hard way. Nova chose that moment to poke her head out of Liam's jacket. She saw the 3 men and her eyes narrowed. The temperature around them suddenly spiked as she prepared to defend herself. Easy way it is, the man with the stun weapon said, raising it. Nova struck first. A stream of fire erupted from her mouth. Real flames this time, not just sparks. The blast was small but fierce. It hit the stun weapon and melted the barrel. The man dropped it with a yelp. The dealer lunged forward to grab Nova, but Liam twisted away, shielding her with his body. The station shook again, harder this time. Closer. She is coming, Liam said. Nova's mother is getting closer. You should run. Not without our prize, the dealer growled. They rushed him together. Liam tried to fight back, but he was just one kid against 3 grown men. Hands grabbed his arms, pulling Nova away from him. She shrieked and breathed fire again, singing someone's sleeve. Then the wall exploded. Metal screamed as massive claws tore through the hull plating like paper. A head the size of a cargo pod pushed through the opening, scales gleaming red gold in the emergency lights. Eyes like molten amber scanned the corridor and locked onto the scene. Ashera had found them. The 3 criminals froze. Liam felt himself go cold despite Nova's heat against his chest. The dragon was enormous, terrifying, ancient beyond measure. Her presence filled the corridor with barely contained violence. Her gaze moved from the criminals to Liam to the small dragon he held protectively against his body. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nova made a sound Liam had never heard, something between a chirp and a cry. She reached toward Ashera with one small claw. Ashera's eyes narrowed. Liam could feel her studying him, analyzing the situation. The boy holding her young. The criminals who had been attacking them. The protective way he curled around Nova despite facing certain death. The dealer made the mistake of raising his weapon. Ashera's tail whipped through the gap in the wall and sent all 3 men flying down the corridor. They hit the far wall and did not get up. Then Ashera focused entirely on Liam, thought he should run. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he could not abandon Nova, and he could not fight a dragon. So he did the only thing that made sense. He held Nova out toward her mother with trembling hands. She's okay, Liam said, his voice shaking. I kept her safe. I tried to take care of her. Nova climbed onto his shoulder and refused to leave, chirping urgently at both Liam and Ashera. Ashera stared at him with those impossibly ancient eyes, and Liam waited to die. Pain woke Liam. His left shoulder burned like someone had pressed hot metal against it. He tried to sit up and gasped as the movement sent fresh agony through his chest. Something stopped him, something warm and massive pressed against his side, that he opened his eyes slowly. He was lying on metal plating in what looked like a cargo bay. The walls were scorched in places, and the air smelled like smoke. Next to him, curled in a protective circle, was Ashera. Her massive body blocked the wind from a partially open bay door. Her scales radiated heat that kept the cold air from reaching him. Nova was curled on his chest, small and warm. She chirped when she saw him awake. Liam's last clear memory was of the dealer's men firing their weapons. He had curled around Nova, trying to shield her. Then Ashera had moved, and everything had become chaos and pain. "You are awake." Ashera's voice was deep and resonant, coming from everywhere at once. She wore a small translation device on her crest that converted her sounds into words he could understand. Liam tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Ashera moved carefully and used one claw to drag a water container closer. He drank gratefully, even though every swallow hurt. "The criminals?" he finally managed to ask. "Gone. I convinced them to leave the station. Permanently." Something in her tone suggested he should not ask for details. Liam looked down at his shoulder. Someone had bandaged it with medical tape and synthetic skin. The wound throbbed, but felt stable. "You helped me. You were injured protecting my young." It seemed appropriate to return the favor. Ashera shifted, and Liam saw intelligence and confusion warring in her ancient eyes. "I do not understand you, human. My kind knows your species. Traitors. Warriors. Sometimes cruel, often selfish. Yet you risked your life for a creature not your own. Why?" Liam stroked Nova's head gently. She purred under his touch. "She needed help. I found her trapped and starving. How could I not help? Many would have sold her. The credits would have changed your life. Maybe, but it would have been wrong." Liam met Ashara's gaze directly. "She is a child, a person. You do not sell people, no matter what species they are." Ashera was silent for a long moment. Nova climbed from Liam's chest to her mother's foreleg, moving between them like a bridge. "I have lived 300 years, Ashera said finally. "I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I watched the Purge Wars nearly destroy my kind. The Galactic Council abandoned us. Let us die because they feared our power. Dragons learned to trust no one but ourselves." She lowered her massive head until she was eye level with Liam. "Then you appear. A young human with nothing, risking everything to save one dragon child. You have confused everything I thought I knew about your species." Liam managed a weak smile. "I confused myself too. I had no idea how to take care of a dragon. I just did my best. Your best kept her alive when my entire species could not protect her." Ashara's voice carried weight, old pain. "The raiders took 7 eggs. Nova was the only survivor. The others died in transit or were sold before they hatched. She lived because you found her." The knowledge hit Liam hard. 6 other dragons, gone forever. Nova, the last of 7. "I am sorry for your loss. I searched for 3 weeks and found nothing. I came to this station planning violence and vengeance. Instead, I found my young safe in the arms of the least likely protector." Ashera made a sound that might have been dragon laughter. "The galaxy has a strange sense of humor." Nova chirped and climbed back to Liam, pressing her head under his chin. She clearly wanted both of them, unwilling to choose between mother and the human who had saved her. "She has bonded with you," Ashera observed. "Dragon young usually bond only with their mother. This is unusual." Liam felt his chest tighten. "I guess it is time to say goodbye then. You should take her home, back to Draxon. She belongs with her own kind." "Does she?" Ashera tilted her head. "You saved my young when your entire species would not. You stood between her and danger despite having no weapons, no power, nothing but your own body. You fed her from your own meager supplies. You gave her a name and a place to sleep and the thing she needed most. Care." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "Dragons are proud, solitary. We do not accept help easily, and we trust even less easily. But we also recognize debt, and we honor those who show true courage." "I was not brave," Liam said quietly. I was terrified most of the time. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite the fear. Ashera shifted her weight, and the movement made the whole bay seem to shift with her. I came here expecting to find enemies. Instead, I found something I did not know existed. A human with the heart of a dragon. Liam blinked. I do not understand. My young needs her mother, but she also needs the one who taught her to trust, who showed her kindness in a cruel galaxy. Ashara's eyes gleamed. You may not be dragonborn, human child, but you have proven yourself worthy of my respect. That is rare. She stood, her full size suddenly apparent. I am returning to Draxon. My people need to know one of the seven survived. They need to see that hope remains. She looked down at Liam. You may come with us if you choose. As Nova's guardian. As my guest. Liam stared at her. You want me to come to the dragon homeworld? I want my young to have a care she needs. From both her mother and the one who saved her life. Ashara's tone made it clear this was not a casual offer. But the choice is yours. I will not force you. Liam looked at Nova, who chirped hopefully. He looked at Ashera, ancient and powerful and somehow offering him a place. He thought about the station, about scavenging and surviving alone, about having nothing and no one. Then he thought about family. The mountains of Draxon rose like ancient teeth against a purple sky. Liam pressed his face to the viewing port of Ashara's ship and watched the planet grow larger. 2 moons hung in the distance, casting silver light across peaks that had never known human footsteps. Nova sat on his shoulder, her tail wrapped around his arm for balance. She had grown noticeably during the 3-day journey, already the size of a medium dog. Ashera said she would keep growing for another 5 years before reaching her adult size. Nervous? Ashera asked from the pilot's nest. Terrified, Liam admitted. What if the other dragons do not want me there? They will not challenge you while you are under my protection. I am queen of the northern ranges. My word carries weight. She adjusted their approach vector. But I will not lie to you. They will be suspicious. Dragons do not trust easily, and humans even less so. The ship descended through thick clouds and emerged over a valley that took Liam's breath away. Crystal formations jutted from cliff faces, catching the light and scattering it in rainbow patterns. Hot springs steamed in natural pools. Caves dotted the mountainsides, some small, others large enough to swallow the ship whole, and dragons. Dozens of them, in colors Liam had never imagined. Some are basking on warm rocks. Others flew between peaks in complex aerial patterns. A few watched the ship's approach with obvious interest. Ashera landed on a flat area near the largest cave system. As the engines powered down, Liam saw dragons gathering at a distance. Not threatening, but definitely watching. Stay close to me, Ashera advised. Let them see that you belong here. They exited the ship together. Nova immediately jumped from Liam's shoulder and ran in circles, clearly delighted to be on solid ground that smelled right to her instincts. She rolled in the warm grass and chirped happily. The gathered dragons murmured among themselves. Liam caught fragments of their communication through Ashara's translator, which she had set to broadcast mode so he could understand. She brought a human. Why would the queen bring one of them here? Look how the young one follows it. An older dragon, scales the color of deep emerald, approached. His steps were measured and his gaze sharp. Ashera, you return with one of your young. We had heard all 7 were lost. 6 were lost, Elder Riven. 1 survived. Ashera gestured to Nova, who was now trying to catch her own tail. She survived because of this human. Liam found her, fed her, protected her from those who would have sold her. He risked his life to keep her safe. Riven studied Liam with an expression that suggested he was evaluating both a curiosity and a potential threat. Humans are traitors and raiders. They were among those who attacked your nesting ground. Some humans were, Ashera agreed. This one was not. This one chose kindness over profit. He had nothing, yet he gave everything to save a dragon child who was not his to save. Another dragon spoke up, younger and clearly skeptical. It could be a trick. Humans are clever with their deceptions. Liam found his voice, even though speaking in front of so many dragons made his knees weak. I understand why you do not trust me. Your kind has been hurt by humans before, but I did not know Nova was valuable when I found her. I just knew she was dying and alone. I cannot leave her like that. Anyone can claim noble intentions. The skeptical dragon countered. Nova apparently decided she had heard enough. She marched over to Liam and climbed up his leg to his shoulder, claiming her spot with obvious possession. Then she chirped at the gathered dragons in a tone that sounded remarkably like scolding. Several dragons made sounds that might have been laughter. The young one has chosen, Riven observed. That carries its own truth. Over the following weeks, Liam learned what it meant to live among dragons. They taught him their history, not from books, but from stories passed down through generations. He learned about the Purge Wars when other species tried to exterminate dragons out of fear. He learned why they chose isolation over integration with the greater galaxy. He also learned practical things. How to identify edible plants in the valleys. How to read weather patterns by watching the way older dragons position themselves. How to understand the complex system of gestures and sounds that made up dragon communication. In return, he taught them about the galaxy beyond their world, about human cultures and alien civilizations, about the technologies they had never bothered to learn because they preferred their own ways. Some dragons listened with interest. Others remained suspicious. All of them watched how Nova thrived under his care. Ashera became his guide through this new world. She explained dragon social structures and helped him navigate complex relationships between different dragon families. She showed him the memorial caves where dragons remembered their dead and the teaching grounds where young dragons learned to fly. You know, she said one evening as they watched the sunset from a high cliff, when I lost my 7 young, I thought my world had ended. I wanted revenge, wanted to burn everything connected to that loss. Nova was practicing short flights nearby, her wings still clumsy but improving daily. But you found her, Liam said. I found her because you saved her. And in saving her, you taught me something I had forgotten. Ashera turned her massive head to look at him. The galaxy is not entirely cruel. There are still beings who choose compassion over profit, who see a suffering child and act, regardless of species. Liam smiled. You are giving me too much credit. I just did what anyone should do. That is precisely why you belong here. You believe kindness is normal, not exceptional. You treat it as an obligation, not a choice. Ashera made a rumbling sound of approval. Most humans would think you are crazy for living with dragons. Most dragons probably agree with them. They do. Yet here we are. Nova landed between them, pleased with her flight. She curled up with her head on Liam's lap, and her tail touching Ashera's foreleg. Connecting them both, Liam looked out over the valley that had become his home. 3 months ago, he had been alone on a dying station with nothing but salvage and survival. Now he had family. Strange family, definitely. Unexpected family. But family nonetheless. Ashera was right. The galaxy had a strange sense of humor, but Liam was grateful for it anyway.